You are listening to Trophy Horse with your hosts, Tricky Mick, Alex, I Yield to No One, Sid, and Ender Phoenix.
Well, folks, we are back with another trickyless and yieldless week. However, for episode 705, you do have what I think may be the best of the bunch when it comes to this hosting crew is Matt and Alex. How you doing, Alex?
Well, I'm flattered that you think that way, Matt. It's been a while since I hosted those, so I don't know if I can lay claim to that exactly, but I do think that you and I make a pretty good tandem when it comes to talking about video games.
Hosting notwithstanding, just as I said, the best of the bunch. So I know it's Tricky's podcast, really. In the end, he's the be all end all.
Well, you would never know by how much he doesn't show up.
Yeah, something about work and being on schedule for snowstorms. God forbid.
There's no snow outside now. I'm looking outside and all the snow's melted.
I'm looking. I wish that was the case. I got my backyard that I'm like, I would really like to clean the path to my grills, and it's still all ice. So that's not happening anytime soon. But we're supposed to get pelted by like an inch or two tonight, and that puts it right in the area of where he lives too. So I guess that's enough for him to call off the podcast, but not enough for us to say we're not recording. You all went about 2 or 3 weeks without some trophy horrors, so we're trying to avoid that again. And like Alex said, I think we got some good conversation for you tonight. But all good conversation starts with our updated trophy counts. Now, usually Yield goes in there and does these, but he's having computer issues tonight, part of the reason why he can't be here. And I tried going into PSN profiles, and I can't vouch for some of these numbers because for some reason on the sheet I have here, Tricky's numbers are higher than what they're being reported in the PSN profiles. So that said, Tricky is level 979 with 35,412 trophies and 1,021 platinum. So if you go in there and see his numbers aren't accurate, give Tricky some shit for us. Alex, your account, sir?
Tricky always has some like voodoo explanation for why his trophies don't match. Like you, I'm a little bit befuddled as always, but I've heard it for so many years now. He's always got an excuse that I'm like, I don't have space in my brain for that. I've got other important things going on. I got even less important things than that. I'm got floating around up here, so there's no room for Tricky to live rent free in my head like that. So I usually just accept whatever answer he gives because it's not my trophy count. So I don't give a shit if it's false or cheating or half my trophies are hidden or whatever. That's his. He's got to sleep with that at night. But I am level 531. Total trophy count of 11,158 and a platinum count of 206 and 205 games.
And Yield is level 541 with 11,760 trophies and 226 platinums. I am sitting at level 223. I messed up my number, whatever it was. It went up by 8, I think, last time, or 5 since last time. So I'll go back to episode 704 and let me know because I don't remember. Platinum count is 0, while Sid is level 901, 28,048 trophies and 867 platinums. Now, I didn't get any sort of notice that there was a rarity contest update notes this week, so this is Tricky's week to edit. So if there's a point to cut that in, now would be the time.
Hey everybody, this is Yield doing the rarity update. If you tuned in last week, I did the rarity update as well. Computer is not cooperating with Discord. Keeps crashing every time I open it. The only thing I can think of is that my computer is too old. But we'll keep trying. But as for now, you're going to get the rarity update. Haven't been on in a while, so if you were wondering, I'm not sure if they recorded an episode or not, but I'm going to take a few minutes here. Run down just what I've been playing. Worked on some Neo Sprint. Try to get that last trophy to pop. It hasn't popped yet. I have played Lego Horizon Adventures with my wife. Glad I got it for free. What Alex said beforehand was kind of spot on. It's Lego. It's got its funny quirks, but the story doesn't feel right being as lighthearted as it is. Have spent a lot of time in Helldivers 2, working through both earning super credits to work through both war bonds. Playing a lot of Core Keeper, marching towards that platinum. Was coming to the end of January, and if you remember a few weeks ago, I said that I didn't know if I would continue my where was I at? I was at 24 months. So I don't know if I'd make it 25 months or sometime this year that streak of months in a row with a platinum would end. But we were coming to the end of January, and Stanley Parable was available for me to play. And I was like, you know what? I can knock this out. So I did. And so that was 1 platinum. I believe that is, where was I at? 225. Stanley Parable was 225. And then I was kind of on a roll. So I went right into Psychonauts 2, which that was my February platinum. So I'm up to 26 months in a row with a platinum. Which then that got me thinking, how many months in a row have I actually gotten a platinum in a row? So I went to PSN profiles, I scrolled back and looked. I'm actually at 28 months. I started in November of 23. And I've had 28 months straight with a platinum. Like I said, Psychonauts 2 was platinum 226. In between that, while I was doing Stanley Parable, I was also playing Journey on the PlayStation 4. Got that 100%ed. Set some Helldivers 2, Core Keeper. And then, finally, I fired up Titanfall 2. Nephew has been wanting me to play it for a while. I actually rolled credits this past Sunday. And it not a bad game. I enjoyed it, especially a mech game. I always wanted to play a mech game. The ones I've played never have lived up to what I thought they would be. This one wasn't bad. I'm enjoying it. Got to go back and play on the hardest difficulty. And then I got some cleanup to do, and obviously I got that one trophy where you got to place in the top 3, which is supposed to be super hard, but people say it's really easy to do. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to watch a video and try to follow the video so I'm not beating my head against the wall. But that's what I've been playing lately, folks. But you didn't come here to listen to all that. What you came to listen to was the latest rarity update. And so here we go. Coming from the man, Gareth himself. Division 1 saw the lead at the top change hands. Doc Chicken edging out Season 4 winner Edge to go clear at the top by 38 points. Can't talk. I worked 12 hours today, so bear with me. Both contestants scored impressively, posting the 2 highest scores of the division. 186 for Doc Chicken, 123 for Edge. These two both have a commanding lead over third place, rolling on the floor laughing out loud Z, who is over 200 points behind with 302. He scored 16 points this week. X-Nightmare 317 earning 1 legacy point to keep him in 4th. Elsewhere in the division, Marky Frazier kept up his impressive recent, moving him further up the table and away from danger with another good 61 points, moving him up to 8th on 183. He's 10 points behind me, who's in 7th, and I scored 25 this week. The man, Gareth himself, dropped into the bottom 2, courtesy of Eifert Hellfire 90 scoring 23, and leapfrogging out of the danger zone. 1 point separates the two with 143 and 142. Last season's runner-up Pee-wee remains bottom, but has closed the gap on those above her with her score of 26. Man, I'm playing some games lately. I just ain't scoring points. I gotta kick it in gear. Division 2 newcomer Shoddy Sniper 123 has stormed into a commanding lead at the top. His season total is already at 732, aided by the highest score overall this week of 282. CJ leapfrogged Dupes into the second promotion spot, with Dupes suffering a negative score of It says a negative score of 155, but I don't think he lost that many points. But anyway, Dupes suffered a negative score of 155, dropping him to third on 246. CJ, meanwhile, moves on to 398. Mr. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle 84 and Mies Goats-A-Lot share the same score of 209 in 4th and 5th as they look to launch promotion challenges back to Division 1. Tricky scored 9 points this week and missed out for the first time this season on his bonus points. He'll say it was work. That takes him into 120 for the year with an 8th position, 27 points behind the Grounded Gamer, who has 147 in 7th. Alex is 1 place further back in 9th. He mustered 7 points, taking him to 88. Waterfields 1 replaced Crook 09 in the regulation spots with 40 points, whilst Prometheus 101 remains rock bottom on minus 12. On to Division 3, the top 2 remain the same as they have all season. The Big Don and Murray 2011 lead the way through though both had quieter weeks this week. Don scored 6, taking him to 210, and at the top, whilst Murray scored 17, pushing him to 151. Homer Gets Stuffed is the nearest challenger. He scored well again with 23 points, taking him to 120. Dodge Williams has picked up in the last 2 weeks as well, can't talk this evening, which has him on the rise to 5th with 86 points. Resident Daryl is in the contention for promotion too, but scored just 2 points this week, moving him to 83. Stink Palm moved off the foot of the table with 5 legacy points, meaning now he's at 13 without having earned a trophy this season. He's replaced at the bottom by Big Bernardo B, who went trophyless this week and sits on 10 points. Now for the rarest trophies of the week. 5th, we have CJ with Marker of Legends, Cult of the Lamb at 4.56%. In 4th, we have Shoddy Sniper 123. We've come to the end on We Happy Few at 4.55%. Mies Goats-A-Lot is in 3rd with Marker of Legends, Cult of the Lamb at 3.98. In 2nd, we have Edge at Mixologist from Call of Duty HQ at a 1.93%. And in 1st place with the rarest trophy this week was Doc Chicken 13. The best is there from Marvel vs. Capcom 2 at 1.25%. Now, Gareth has a thing on here for clarification that CJ and Mies Goats-A-Lot have the same trophy, but different rarities. That's because Mies Goats-A-Lot earned his Cult of the Lamb on the PS5, and CJ earned his on the PS4 EU version. January Plat of the Month winners, top 3. 3rd was Joint with Tricky, with Rogue Company, and Mies Goats-A-Lot with Red Dead Redemption. 2nd was Pee-wee with Red Dead Redemption 2. And 1st was Trackmania Turbo by Edge. Congratulations to all nominees, and especially Diego on the win. I voted for Trackmania Turbo because I've played through that. Haven't played it in a while, but I was playing through that. Yeah, that beats Red Dead. I'm sorry. That's a commitment. Some of those time trials getting under the gold score, I'd run some good laps, and I'm like, I don't know how to do it. But anyway, that is your Plat of the Month winners for January. That's your Plat of the Month winner for January. Your rarest trophies of the week, and the rarity update for this Valentine's week. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hopefully I will make it back on the show soon, but if not, you'll hear me here, or you'll see me online. See you guys later.
And that leaves us to go on to what we've been playing. So, Alex, what have you been doing since we last spoke last Sunday?
Well, I'm not getting. Well, I guess maybe we could talk a little Helldivers too, because I haven't looked at the agenda, and I don't know if any of the stories coming out of that this week are going to be on here.
No, but I did play some Helldivers too, so we could talk about that.
They've got we're attacking Cyberstan, which is the stronghold of the cyborgs.
You're attacking Cyberstan. I'm still punching bugs in the face.
Well, that's fine, because they put in a strategic order, a mini order, so to speak, where people who are fighting against the bugs can help the funding for the spread of managed democracy. You all can bring in extra funds to help the war effort just by doing what you're doing, which is fighting the bugs. Because, realistically, everyone has their own faction, and I think that people will just default to that a lot of times. I absolutely refuse to do anything with the Illuminate. If there's a major order or if there's a personal order, the daily order that has anything to do with the Illuminate, I guess I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm not doing that. I hate fighting the Illuminate. Absolutely hate the Illuminate. But the bots are my favorite race to fight against in this game. And so we're doing the attack on Cyberstan, and there was issues midweek with hacking. Somebody, I don't know if you heard about this, Matt, but people were hacking the game where they were inflating the numbers of kills against the enemies, as well as, and that had to do with the strategic order against the bugs. And people were somehow inflating the numbers on the mission, because we have to extract from so many missions from Cyberstan to complete this latest major order. And people were somehow going in and inflating those numbers. So Arrowhead had to shut everything down for a bit, go in and fix everything, and then reset the numbers a little bit to account for the hacking. But that's been a big talking point in the community this week. I know that Lieutenant Buzz Lightbeer did a video on it. Usually when he does videos on Helldivers, depending on how connected I am with the game, I usually watch his stuff. So here's the key thing, though. If we're 2 years into the game now, this needs to be the end of the bots. I love fighting the bots. I'm fine fighting the bugs. I hate the Illuminate. So if it's ever just the Illuminate, I'm out. I'm not fighting anymore. But I'll fight the bugs. The automatons, though, after this, if we're attacking Cyberstan, they gotta go. We can't just do this entire offensive and then have them come back on the map, again. We've been fighting this war for 2 years. It's now time to get rid of one of the factions. So by the end of this, Arrowhead absolutely needs to get the automatons out of there.
I don't think they ever will, though, because
there's got to be an end to the war.
Effectively, well, it would be nice if they had a end stage game plan, meaning it's got to be a season-based war, meaning you've got to make it so that players can achieve something and get something out of that, and then you start a new war. You can't ever have it that enemies completely go away, because then the game dies, essentially. That would be the antithesis of continuing a live service game.
Problem with that, though, again, is I understand the point of the, live service game. There's two other factions in there, though. You still have the Illuminate, you still have the bugs. The bugs, I think, are the most popular faction, but if you're asking people to do these major orders and then at the end of it you're attacking their home base and then they just come back with a bigger offensive, people are going to be like, what the fuck is the point of us doing any of this? At some point you're going to have, it's like seasons of the war you mentioned. Well, what have we had, just one complete season with nothing happening? I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. It needs to be a season-based war. Players can choose which side that they want to kind of eliminate, and they should get something out of that. But if you make it so that way you completely push an army back, and then that's it, they're done, what's next? You defeat the bots, then you go and defeat the bugs, and then you defeat the Illuminate, and then what happens? Do we just start over? Do you make a new season? What do you see happening once you've pushed back all the enemies?
New game.
Well, that's ways off.
I'm sorry. I feel like if we're taking 2 years to get to this point where I'm asking them to get the bots off the map. and there's 2 other factions, and you're going to tell me it's going to take 2 years? Even after 4 years, like, I feel like this game will have, for the most part, outlived its life, and you may have some people playing all the way through, but if your plan is to drag this out for 6 years, I don't know. Like, you're going to have most people fall off by that point. Now, granted, there's been over 100,000 people, closer to 200,000 people playing when I've been playing on at night. And, at one point it dipped down to the 20,000s. But, I mean, that's clearly because of the big, giant, like, offensive we're doing right now. I just think that at some point the war has to end. It can't just be this continuous war, and you still expect people to invest. Now,
well, that's where I think, it would come up with something like seasons, where your reward is some sort of, I don't know,
you got to have a season pass.
You
though,
can't.
Matt.
Well, I wouldn't even say. I think they
pass.
can get away with. I think they could get away with it without having a season pass, and you just have to take part in the major offensives. If you contributed to the major offensive, then you should be eligible for the reward, because you got to talk about hundreds of thousands of players aiming for it. So what that means is you do a season, you do an all-out offensive to eliminate the bots, and you get a special helmet or a cape, or a helmet and a cape or something like that shows you were there, kind of like the whole Malevelon Creek type of incident, where if you were part of it, you got something out of it. And then you reset, and it's a new war season, and now your major offensive is get rid of the squids, so that way you get something out of that. And if you're coming in now, you're not going to be eligible to get those items. You can't get them because you didn't take part of the war effort in the previous season. I think that would be a better way. That way players feel like they're aiming something. Now, is a helmet and a cape enough to make you care? I don't know. Plenty of players would probably say no. Some players might say yes. So I can't see them doing it that the game just terminates, because then you're going to have a lot of pissed off people that they spent money on this game, and that's it. They're done.
Yeah, but what, August is when we had the Microsoft players, the Xboxers come in and join the Team Green, join the crew, join the war effort. But for everybody else, it's been like 2 years. I played over 450 hours in this game. I feel like I've got my money worth as is. And now I'm kind of looking for the resolution to start happening. But again, I don't represent everybody. That's just me. But with how many hours I've put in, it just feels like now we need to start actually winning the war. Like pushing it out forever just doesn't sound like the best pathway forward, but I'm sure this has been discussed at Arrowhead ad nauseum, so we'll just have to wait and see. But I really, really think as long as the bugs are still alive, people will be happy. Because I know that the automatons aren't everyone's favorite, aren't everyone's cup of tea, so to speak. So, personally, I like fighting them because they're more long range. They're not like swarming, like, say, the Illuminate, the Voteless, or the bugs, the smaller bugs. So I like fighting the long-ranged machines. But I think this, because the game started for, I don't remember how long it was, but the game had 2 factions for the longest time. So I think you could get away with 2 factions. Now, whether enough people want to fight the Illuminate, that's enough to be, something we have yet to see that, but the bugs, I think, are the most popular faction, so as long as they're still in there, I think they're good. But
yeah, but I think you alienate a lot of players if you turn around and popular vote essentially eliminates one entire faction. People are going to be feeling like if they go to buy into the game now, that they're getting less of a game.
Some people may feel like that, but like I said, the story has to play out, and the story can't just be like, well, you succeeded, and then bots come back. Like, that feels like a failure to me. We do this big offensive against Cyberstan, we liberate Cyberstan, and then it was all for naught. I don't know. It kind of feels like a failure even if you succeed, but we'll see. I've also been playing quite a bit of Thalassophobia, the game. Subnautica Below Zero, and a lot of the discourse online that I've seen is this game's not as popular as Subnautica, which I had just realized the other day when I was watching a video that Subnautica came out in 2014, which is incredible because they've announced Subnautica 2. We don't have it yet, but Below Zero came out in 2021. 2014 with Subnautica is crazy that that game is that old. But yeah, the discourse online for Subnautica Below Zero, I guess maybe it's because people feel like it feels more like DLC than a full game, because I guess, Subnautica just feels so much bigger. Me personally, I don't know, man. It's, I can see how someone could be like, oh, it's like a Spider-Man to Miles Morales situation, but I mean, to me, this feels like a full game. Like I don't know exactly how many hours I put into it, but it's, a good amount to where, I'm not done with the story by any means. I'm still exploring. There's still some elements and minerals I haven't seen yet. So, I'll have to, hold on. Let me check here. Let me see. I got the PlayStation on right next to me. Let's see how many, 15 hours. I'm 15 hours in, and I'm not at the end of the story. I'm still finding new minerals. So, haven't even seen some of the Leviathans yet. So no, I don't get the complaints about how this game isn't long enough. And personally, there are some things that I like about Sub-Zero that I like more than the original Subnautica. The number one thing is there's no Cyclops. For anyone who didn't play that game, the Cyclops was a giant submarine which you built late game that essentially allowed you to go to later areas of the map, and it was basically like a mobile base. You could build like living quarters in there. You could build everything you needed, fabricators, modification stations, like everything you needed could be in that base. That mobile base. The problem with the Cyclops was it was a fucking hassle to get around. It was so damn big, it was cumbersome to drive. And especially with some of the areas like going down into the core and like some of the later late game areas of the first game, it was like I was nervous to drive it. I hated driving it. It was narrow spaces. In a lot of places it was dark, so you could hardly see where you were going. And just navigating that thing was a massive headache. I understand why they made it. It's somewhere in between the Sea Moth, which is a smaller, more nimble vehicle, and just a full base. But to me, it was just too big and too cumbersome. So in this game, they had to introduce a Sea Truck, which is more than a Sea Moth, but less than a Cyclops, which you could just kind of, if you wanted to, you could attach things to it to make it bigger, or you could just keep it as its normal size and kind of explore and add upgrades to it and everything like that. So I like the Sea Truck a lot more than the Cyclops. It feels like, it's not too much more than like bigger than a Sea Moth to where you feel like you can't get around quickly. But like I said, just the absence of the Cyclops is a load off for me in my mind, because that was just the worst part of the game for me, was trying to use the Cyclops. I hated it. But yeah, as far as the game goes, having played Subnautica, like I was kind of lost when I first opened up Subnautica the first time, and then, having played that full game and experienced everything from the crafting and the building, and actually really enjoying the crafting, the building, and the resource management more than anything else in that game, I had a much better start for just Below Zero, because I knew exactly what I had to do. All right, go out, find your copper, your titanium, your quartz, and start there and just start building stuff. Not a habitat yet, because you got to wait a little longer for that, but, start building your early game stuff. And the game, after time, it doesn't make everything readily apparent to you with waypoints, but over time, feed you more and more of the story. Admittedly, there are still things that I've had to look up, so, it's just one of those game series for me that I'm not always, I like to explore, but even when I explore, I feel like I miss things and I don't find exactly what I need, early enough, so I don't know how far I am in the game, so I've looked up some places to find diamonds or magnetite, because I need that stuff to build different items. So the game, for me, it forces you to explore, and there's a lot to explore. But I think one of the things that I don't like the most, and this kind of is the core of Subnautica, so maybe Subnautica is just not for me, but there's something about exploring the sea that is at times incredibly fascinating, but also extremely frustrating, simply because your vision is just so impaired. It's so much harder to find things under the water than it is on land. Just your visibility is cut down. So, that adds a lot to the mystery of the game and to the underwater sections, and allows some of the creatures to be as, mystifying as they are. But there is that aspect of it where the exploration is two parts, one part fascinating and, engaging and fun, and the other part is you're looking for very specific things in this big world, and it's just hard to find them sometimes. Naturally you would hope that the story and the different areas take you to where you need to go to find the different minerals. But, in general, I feel like I've explored enough, and just having to go to YouTube a lot of times does frustrate me a little bit. But I like the fauna. I like the flora. Some aspects of it do feel. I mean, it's the same planet, so you are going to see some things that remind you of the first game, but there are new elements to it. So, but I mean, I like the. I've only seen. I haven't really had many encounters with the violent leviathans. I've only had encounters really with the friendly ones. Um, but I like the glow whales. I like the vent gardens. I just like the designs of all the fauna in this game better than the first game, which I know again with the Reaper Leviathan and everything and the Sea Dragon, I think people felt like everything was better in the first game. Personally, for me, I feel like the second game, or Below Zero, gets more hate than it should. So, because anything I have an issue with in Subnautica Below Zero, I also have an issue with in Subnautica. So it's really just maybe the game isn't for me. But I do like that they offer a creative mode. There's a freedom mode which allows you to just worry about swimming and breathing and survival. There are different. The difficulties have to do with whether you want to feed yourself and keep yourself from dying of thirst, or whether you want freedom mode, which is less restrictive, where you just have to worry about your breathing and oxygen underwater and just your health. Surviving against the fauna. So I always do freedom because I don't want to have to worry about feeding myself or my thirst. But there's also a creative mode where it takes out all the story elements. You can't earn trophies, but you don't have to worry about anything else. You can just dive freely, stay under there as long as you want, go as deep as you want, and collect resources and build. And I really enjoy building a base and decorating it, finding posters around the world through exploration, and then putting them in my own base. And the whole creation aspect of it and the customization of the bases is a lot of fun. It's probably one of my favorite aspects, just beyond general management of the resources. I love me a good resource management game. So, but yeah, Subnautica Below Zero, things I did definitely learn things from the first game that I've taken to this game that have made this game easier. I use beacons a lot more because I just started to use beacons at the very end of the fucking game. And I was like, shit, I wish I had known about these, at the early stages of the game. That would have helped a lot. But I'm using those a lot more, and it's helped me get around and go and return to places to, pick resources that are, very specific to certain areas. So overall, though, despite some of my frustrations, there are very many aspects of Subnautica I do like. And I think that my opinion of Below Zero is a lot more positive than it seems like a lot of fans of Subnautica. I don't necessarily know that I would call myself a fan of Subnautica, but I do enjoy a lot of aspects of the game. It's just the exploration aspect for me is like a double-edged sword, if that makes sense.
Makes sense to me. I tried the original Subnautica. I never got into Sub-Zero, and it kind of fell into the same trap of all open world collectathon games. Is after a while, I just got bored with it. And exploration wasn't enough to keep me hooked in and interested. There wasn't like enough happening for me to be like, oh yeah, I must continue on. So that's kind of where I stopped my Subnautica journey.
The story, I mean, yeah, honestly, I could care less about the story in these games. I've never found it particularly something that pushes me forward. I'm here to earn the trophies, to be honest. Like, I'm here to play the game and experience the game and build and explore, but the trophies are pushing me forward more than the story because I just don't care about any of what's going on. Like, I'm not reading any of the background. Like, I'll collect the PDAs and stuff, and I'll scan the creatures and the Leviathans and everything, and I'll get all that data collected, but I don't read it. I don't stop and read it. I'm just kind of like, all right, got to go out and collect, rush back to my base, put everything in lockers, go back out, so that's where I'm at. Subnautica is a game that, there's enough there for me to consider playing. And I feel like, so this is, I used the example of Miles Morales earlier, where to me, an open world superhero game like Spider-Man was too much, but a more bite-sized version, a smaller version like Miles Morales is perfect. And I think that for me, Subnautica, the original one, was really, really big, or it felt super big for me, and maybe more that I could, I bit off more that I could chew. But with Subnautica Below Zero, like a smaller game, I still get the experience of that game, but there's just less of it, so I don't hit the wall where I'm just dragging my body forward, I've had enough, but I have to drag myself forward to get that 100%. I feel like this game, for me, is one of those where the more bite-sized version is more complementary to how I want to play. So I feel like I get the most out of the experience, but yet it doesn't take me as long to get through it, so I don't get as frustrated and don't get as tired of it. So, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, like I said, I like the creatures, I like the flora, I like the fauna, love the creation aspect, the building, the customization, and I think that just for me, the exploration comes with some frustration, despite the fact that I do enjoy getting out there and swimming through the water. And I think that we had talked about how, what was it? It might have been with a discussion of thalassophobia, how you have to give players, or it may have been talk with like survival horror in general, or survival games. You have to give players moments to breathe. And I think that there are moments of danger in Subnautica and Below Zero, but I do think that there's enough calmness to that, to where it allows you to breathe, to where you can collect yourself and, there's enough calm where you can collect yourself and recharge and be like, okay, I'm ready to go back out. I know there's danger out there, but I've got the bravery to explore because I've had the moments to kind of, just sit and like hanging up my base, knowing nothing can attack me in there, unless you build a base in the void, like at the world's edge or in the void, like some psychopaths. But I'm in my sanctuary, and now I can go back out again. So I think the game is really good about that by offering a sense of danger. You never know, because I've had squid sharks come up from nowhere and attack my sea truck. Didn't know what was going on. I was like, holy shit, what the hell just happened? But
did you make sushi out of it?
No, I did not. I do have the thermal knife, so I might be able to defend myself in that case. But I don't think at the moment that I just had the survival knife, which isn't going to do anything against the squid shark. But again, it just goes back to that point where there's enough breathing room in the game to where there's danger and it's out there, but it's not completely all-encompassing where you feel crushed and strangled by it. You feel the need to explore because even if it's there, you have the moments where you can breathe and collect yourself and muster up the courage to go back out there. So, I mean, Subnautica is not going to be for everybody, but I do believe that it is I will say about Below Zero specifically that I do believe it gets more hate than it deserves. As far as the story and the characters go, I'm there with you. I don't really care about them, and I have heard that. But as far as being compared to the first game, I think some of the criticisms are unfair.
Okay.
I'm just one person, so game is on PlayStation Plus for this month for the Essential tier, so if you have the Essential tier, you can go download it and try it for yourself. But those are my thoughts.
But you are one person on this podcast that gives a very valid point and opinion, so definitely. Okay.
Yeah, and I feel like it's true. My feelings about Subnautica Below Zero are kind of the way that I felt about Subnautica. Like it's not like it radically changed anything. It's like, no, this is my second time playing through the games, and my frustrations are the way they are, or that my frustrations are kind of the same as they were. Although I do have a better understanding of the world, so I can kind of feel better about getting my feet wet, and I kind of can get a better start. And, the lack of the Cyclops is definitely a plus for me. But again, some people may feel like because they took out the Cyclops and they're not a fan of the Sea Truck that, maybe they feel like it's a lesser experience. I don't know. But playing the first one definitely helped my, at least initial opening experience for this game. So I just kind of wish I didn't have to look stuff up as much. It's just, sometimes it's just kind of hard to find things deep down under the water and you need a little help.
I'm not one to shy using a guide whenever I need to.
I'm halfway through life right now. I don't got time to sit here and play Subnautica Below Zero for 100 hours looking for a cache of magnetite when there's a guy online who can just tell me and I can go find it in 5 minutes. I need to build stone. I need to build stone, y'all.
I had this conversation with some of the guys on Channel 3, and we said how certain older games that are on Nintendo services that you use the rewind or save state feature because you can't beat those games now. And I attribute that more to a level of impatience and time management because as adults, we have a billion different things we're going to be doing. Plus, we have more games to play than we ever did as a kid. But as a kid, you might have had just 1 or 2 games to play, plus extra time. So you were okay with dedicating time to learning and getting better. Here, the money I'm spending on games and everything else I got going on, I got time. I don't got time for that. I gotta get through, beat the game, play it to my level of enjoyment, and then move on. And if that means I want to beat a game and I'm using tools that they're giving to me, including save states and rewinds, I'm going to do that. And that's why I go back to say, if a game doesn't hold my attention, I'm just going to move on. I don't care about the money I've spent on it because I got too much other things that I need to focus on doing.
And I think it very much is like a lot of games, and specifically, I think like there are games out there a lot of times, and developers have gotten better at this over the years. They learn how to guide you with visual cues, not just like slapping you in the face like with an arrow at the top of the screen or a blip on a map, but they use colors to guide you. Like a specific color to denote a ledge that you can climb. Like they may make a ledge like painted in yellow, so you know that that's an area you can climb, whereas the rest of the world may be varying shades of like blue and orange and red. And but the things you can climb are yellow. I think Horizon did some of that. Like Horizon was really good about directing you and what you could climb and what you couldn't. So Mirror's Edge, I think, was another game specifically that used color as you were running to kind of do to people like, hey, this is an area that you can use to kind of traverse. But obviously Subnautica, the way the developers, just kind of plop you down on this planet and they expect you to find your own way, it can be very frustrating because over the years we've been trained that eventually we will be shown the way. And Subnautica does do some of that, but it is a game where you're very much reliant on yourself. And there's a certain amount of time where it's like I'm willing to try and put in the effort and explore. But after that, it's like, well, what am I doing here? Like, time is precious. And am I really going to sit here and just continue to go over the same areas of the ocean before I, finally throw my hands up in the air? So I think that very much what Subnautica does is intentionally going against, things that we have been trained is that we are going to be shown the way a lot of times. Like even in open world games, there's like, markers and stuff for that for missions. Subnautica's not like that. So I think that in itself can lead to some frustration, but I also think that that's why a lot of people love Subnautica. It's just, they are dropped and they are given bare minimum and they are, free to do everything at their leisure. So.
All right. Playing anything else this week?
Nope. Just been doing the Helldivers, doing some Subnautica, and that's about it.
Okay. For me this week, I played more of Origami 2 with some friends. We are stuck on a mission. This is a Tenchu-like game where you're ninjas and you gotta fight your way through missions and complete them. The mission is you have to complete it without getting spotted and without killing anybody, meaning you have to rely on all the other items. Now, you can knock out your foes, so it's not like you're forced to just figure out the best way around them. It's just, it is so difficult when it's like you cannot get spotted and you cannot kill anybody. So, your game's training you to do these things throughout the first number of missions. And now it's like, hey, all that stuff you learned how to do, yeah, don't do that for this one. So it's kind of halting progress. We keep failing it and we keep getting frustrated. So we go try something else. So we're playing more of that. I played more Ball Pit, earning more. So not so much getting the gears I need to be able to upgrade the lift to get to different maps. Now I'm going back into the older levels, trying to find the blueprints for other characters, other buildings, other structures to build more, to get my character's base stats up. I'm upgrading buildings in my town and making so I can go into those other maps at a better base state to complete them more efficiently, more damage, being able to protect myself more. It's still so much fun just figuring out the best combos of all the weapons and the balls that you can get. So definitely give that one a try if you folks are looking for something kind of similar, akin to Vampire Survivors or other roguelites. I am doing a review for another game, a group from Channel 3 where we get codes. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the future once I have a chance to play it more. It is a PC game akin to F-Zero, and I could say so far I'm not impressed. The game has crashed both times for me, and I have to put a lot more time into it to get a proper impression, hopefully where it doesn't die. As I mentioned earlier, did a little bit more Helldivers 2. I got a whole bunch of medals, which allowed me to get more from the Python, not the Commandos. What was the latest one that came
Siege
out?
Breakers?
No, I didn't get Siege Breakers yet. It was because there's 2 Pythons. I think like Python Commandos and Python Warriors or whatever.
Well, no, there's Viper
It's
Commandos and Python Commandos. I think they're both Commandos.
Oh, okay. Then Python Commandos, the one with the minigun, what the heck else was in that one? Oh, the Flame Dog and something else. I forget what it was, but I'm enjoying that kit. The minigun is actually really cool. It's just, it fires all over the place. So getting it to train on a target is a little difficult, but definitely good for mowing down tons of enemies. And then the Flame Dog is always good to have a little bit of a fire-based backup. I did a little bit more Arc Raiders, taking my buddy Stebbs through some of his training. He's only done like about 2 missions, so we didn't get very far. But luckily we did evacuate without much interaction with other players. But the main game I want to talk about that I've been playing this week is the new game from Edmund McMillan, the creator of Super Meat Boy, as well as Binding of Isaac. Binding of Isaac, the one that has 50 million versions of it. This was a game announced back in 2012 and then went radio silent for like 5-6 years. And this game is Mewgenics. The game originally was slated to come out years ago, and Edmund was figuring out ways of making the systems and what it would end up being. And unfortunately, he lost the rights. They canceled it, and they said, no, we're not making it. Well, about 6 years after that, he finally got the rights back, and he started basically making the game over from scratch. So count to be another like 6 or 7 years, and you now have released on February 10th Mewgenics. And what this game is, it's a roguelike cat breeding simulator, for lack of a better term. And what it is you breed cats, and then you take up to 4 cats out on a mission. And it's kind of like Slay the Spire, where you choose your path on the way you go. And it's a little streamlined at first. I've only gotten to open 5 of the areas. I don't know how many areas there are, but evidently I'm nowhere near the end of Act 1 of 3. And when you assign your cats, you get to assign them classes, like Dungeons and Dragons based classes, a tank, a fighter. You start out with those 2, as well as a ranger and a mage. And they come with skills that you use, and you get health and mana, and you can get defense. And what you do is you go out into grid-based battles. So your cats have a certain amount of movement they can make. They can use mana to cast spells or do basic attacks. You gather coins and other items from when you go out and play. And then what happens is you either complete the run, meaning you get to a point where you can send your cats home, or your cats die. And the goal of getting them home is so that way you can breed them with other cats to hopefully fill in certain traits you want with the kittens that they birth. So each cat has a stat for your health, your melee damage, your ranged attack, your movement, speed, and distance, your intelligence for mana, and luck. And you're breeding them with the hopes that they will pass on either skills or stat points to their offspring. Now, if you complete a run with the cats, that's it. They are done. They cannot go on another adventure. They are hereby retired. So what you do is you donate those cats to other NPCs in the world to get things like one character will improve your home by adding more rooms. Another will offer items for sale that improve the stats of your home, which allows you to have better chances of breeding better offspring or attracting stray cats that you can bring in and augment your catdom, we'll call it. So Those are the basic mechanics of the game, but this is Edmund McMillen, so it's got a certain sense of humor or aesthetic to it. Everything is crudely drawn. There is a sixth sense of humor. There's in some cases blasphemy, other cases, you know, your cats will blatantly say, "Have you met our Lord and Savior Jesus?" Cats are disfigured. They get hurt. They get broken. They sometimes get killed. And it takes a certain type of person to kind of get past some of that aesthetic. So I totally understand if it's not your type of game, but I've liked the games that Edmund has made over the years, so I'm not shocked or put off by his aesthetics. And some of the skills are very within that realm. You know, some cats, it's like barf ball, where a cat hawks a hairball at an enemy to attack it. Another one is a cat can cast a lightning bolt that heals, but also may stun. The main goal is you take your cats as far as you can go. Obviously, risking it, the further you go in, it gets harder and harder the further along the track you go. You know, it just came out on the 10th. I've already put like 18 hours to do it, and it's a run-based game. You know, you could do a run, you could save in the middle of a run, come back to it later. But ultimately, it's how far and how much do you want to risk your cats to go in there? And it's at a point where, like I said, the aesthetics might put a lot of people off, but the tactics, there's a lot there. There's things like to consider. If you see a bunch of enemies sitting in a pool of water, guess what? If you cast lightning bolt on one of those enemies, the water transmits the electricity to the others, damaging them as well. There was a cat that I froze, and then I mistakenly used fireball, and it just defrosted that cat earlier. If a cat is wet and you cast fireball, it will dry off the cat. So there are all these little hidden mechanics you get to discover throughout the game, and no RPG light is complete without items, you know, items that will increase your cat's defense, items that will give your cats extra skills, or items that have a negative connotation. I used a item that would give my cat like plus 10 defense, but once the item breaks, and it breaks if the animal gets downed, it becomes your cat gets psychosis, meaning it will attack anything and everything within its range. So there's a lot of balancing, a lot of decision making you have to do when it comes to this type of game, and it's all done under the lens of what Edward McMillen does as far as these games go, as far as aesthetics and humor and graphic nature. So that's what I've been spending a lot of my time this week playing. It will continue it for quite some time. I've been waiting for this game for well over a decade now. And that is what I've been playing this week.
Yeah, I don't even...
All right.
With the cat game, was it, you say it was Mewgenics?
Yes.
Is it spelled MEW?
Yes.
Okay. I was listening halfway through. It's like, I wonder how that's spelled. Because there's no way anyone can miss the opportunity to make it MEW. But so a couple questions for you. One's about arc raiders. How, you know, you and Tricky had talked about this on the show before. How have your experiences been with the other players since then? Do you enjoy playing with other people, or you try to avoid other people, you know, outside of your party that you're playing with, like the plague?
I generally don't queue up for joining other people. I don't trust them as far as listening or following the natural course of it. I've had hit and miss, literally, when I've been playing with other people that I find in the wild. Some shoot on sight, others are friendly. I have yet to find the people who say they're friendly and then shoot when your back is turned. So I consider myself lucky thus far with that type of interaction, but I still have a lot of fun with it. It's still a great thing. And I think I didn't put the article in there, but the developer said it's a fun look at like a human social experiment to see really how do people react when there's like no leash.
I don't know. I don't trust people all that much, so I can understand the people who run away and want to avoid everybody in our craters, but also I can understand the people who shoot first because, maybe they've watched Book of Eli one too many times, or they've seen too many post-apocalyptic worlds where there's raiders and bandits, and you just don't want to take the chance. You're going to shoot first and, well, not ask any questions after that. But the other question is about Mewgenics. What's the art style? Obviously, Binding of Isaac, and what was the other game he made? Oh, Super Meat Boy. Had
Super
kind of a
Meat Boy.
similar art style. Maybe.
Very much the same.
Yeah. What's this one like?
Very much that same. It's kind of like a paper cutout, hand-drawn child's fridge art drawing. The cats are not realistic. They don't have realistic features. Some of them are, weirdly drawn,
which I think is a good
proportions.
Like I think that makes it more acceptable because obviously you talked about some of the things these cats go through, and I think that having unrealistic cats is a good way to go. So so as not to upset people.
Yeah, and it gets violent. Like bodies explode and certain things happen. It's not good. But from an aesthetics point, it's exactly what his games have been. Unrealistic drawings of representations of things. So he's stuck with that very well. Alrighty. Now we got some news articles for you, and we will kind of quickly go over some of these. And the first article coming from Tricky's favorite person on Bloomberg, Jason Schreier, in an article titled "Water is Wet." No, actually, it was "Video Games Need to Be Cheaper to Buy," and this is his opinion piece. And he's talking that games are costing too much money, especially with microtransactions built in, and games that are like $80, like Mario Kart World. But then you have games like Clair Obscur, which is Game of the Year, had a release discount of 20% on PC platforms. So for early players, it was just $40. But these days, games being 60 or 70, even as the cost of living has gone up, it's starting to become rough. But then you have games like was Helldivers released for 40. Hell, Mewgenics released this week for 30 with a 10% discount, so I bought it for 26. So, you even had games like Avowed, which was coming out there, and Xbox was saying, "Oh, it's a premier game, so you're going to be paying $80 for it." And then there was a lashback and said, "Okay, it'll be $70." So I hear it, and I think we've had this discussion multiple times on the show. I'm of the mindset that $70 for today's games is not, I don't want to say a big deal, but unexpected given the fact of how long games have languished for years. I've still hold the piece of, well, it's not the full priced game. It's the fact that you're adding microtransactions to the game. And I always argue that current day, these are not microtransactions. These are macro transactions. $5 for horse armor back in 2004 for Oblivion is now like $20 today for horse armor. And I'm like, no, you idiots, stop overpricing these things. If you make them cheaper, people will buy them. Are you risking one person to buy a $20 DLC versus 25 people that might buy it because it's $1? Like, stop being that greedy. Like that's my issue with all this, is that games themselves being 70 is not my breaking point. It's that the things that they're adding to these games to entice you to spend more, to basically say you bought the $70 game, but if you really want the full experience, you need to buy this extra thing. They're pricing themselves out of greed. They're pricing themselves out of a market. That's been my problem. But Alex, I want to hear your thoughts.
I definitely look at something like, I do think that, there are some games and... Sorry, I thought I had to sneeze there. No. The disparity between Donkey Kong Bonanza and charging $10 more for Mario Kart, I don't know. Like, again, some of Nintendo's pricing this generation kind of really throws me off and it makes me not want to at least buy in just yet. Until I see certain games announced, but I get your point. I do think that a sudden jump, a 20 plus jump in the cost of games, I don't want to say it's completely not the cost of games, because I do think that the constant increases over the last couple of generations have given people pause, and I understand that. And maybe it's because, like has been said before, Jeff has made this point on the podcast before, that for so long, the cost of games kind of held steady, that now that's the kind of reason we're seeing this now. But I can't blame people for seeing that and be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This game used to be, this much less, or I paid $20 less for Mario Kart on the last system. Why am I paying $80 for it now? So I don't want to completely discredit that. But the point about, macrotransactions, I mean, like, you can use Rocket League as a point where they have goal scores that are $20. And their credits never go on sale. The goal scores, like, sometimes they will re-release the goal scores in the store for, less money than they originally released at, but a lot of the licensed stuff is incredibly expensive. And so, you never see like Black Friday deals for Rocket League. So it's like, man, I really enjoy playing Rocket League and I would really like to have this car, but it's part of a package where sometimes they make you buy an entire bundle instead of just buying the one thing you want. You can't even buy that. You got to buy an entire bundle of items. So the transactions, like, and they're not even high anymore. There's like skins that, cost outrageous amounts of money for just a cosmetic. And I know people like to customize and they like to express themselves through their favorite character. I get it. You want to have a different, if you're playing Pokemon Unite, you want to have a special costume for your favorite Pokemon. Or if you have the money to spend, you want special costumes for all of them. But the company's just egregiously asking, overcharging for these things is ridiculous. It's, you basically create the code and you create the design and the costume, and then you just allow however many people to download as many times as they want. Like, there is a gross amount of overcharging in a lot of the downloadable content. And it's not necessarily with the, there are certain offenders that are worse than others, but I think it's just a general cost in the, and microtransactions, macrotransactions, they are definitely part of this. But I think just the general cost, rising cost of the hobby itself, alongside the rising cost of everything else, is really what's got people so upset about this. Because if it was like, if food didn't cost as much, if gas didn't cost as much, if it didn't cost you as much to go to the doctor, I don't think that the cost of, Mario Kart or the Switch 2 would really bother people. But people look at their purchases with a more, scrutinous eye these days. And I think it's not just specifically the standalone case of the cost of video games, but I think you have to take everything into context within the world we live in. So I think what you're saying is true, but I also think there's so many factors that influence why people look at video game purchases the way they do now.
But I even take your example of Rocket League, and I sit there and I say, initially it wasn't a free game. But I also think it wasn't an expensive game. I think it was like $20.
Yeah.
And then it came out as free. And again, it kind of goes back to the Nether Realms, Mortal Kombat 1 fatalities being like $30 for 3 fatalities. Fuck off. Like $20 for a goal animation. I think you would sell more if it was, and again, not knowing the numbers, it's not like they advertise that sort of thing. But I sit there and I go, oh my God, you guys could sell so much more if you made it cheaper. Like, honestly, how have you recouped the cost for those animations? Probably, because it probably doesn't take a ton of effort to do it. But imagine how much more you could sell if if I'm going to a concert or a movie theater, I'm buying dollar store candy because I'm not spending frickin' for what I buy a single box of jujubes. Like, I can get 5 bags of it at a dollar store. Like, it's ridiculous. I don't know. But I hear what Jason's saying. I hear what you're saying. And I say the total price of buying for games, I don't think is so much a problem these days. I really think it's the fact that they shoehorn things that are meant to give you more joy or give you a more complete experience or help you skip parts of the game, the game that you bought to play, because they think, oh, well, this is the time saver. You'll just spend it this way. It's That's the issue I take with game prices these days. It's that these microtransactions have never been micro. They've always been egregious for what you're getting. But speaking of money, Mewgenics, coming from IGN, sells over 150,000 copies in the first 6 hours, with Edmund saying this is beating expectations by quite a lot. And last I saw, there were over 100,000 concurrent players on Steam playing Mewgenics. And shortly after, that was 150,000 copies in the first 6 hours. His co-developer, Tyler Glale, said, and we made back our development budget after 3 hours. Thank you all. Meaning that this game was in development since 2012. And it's a small team. I want to say probably about 10 people overall, I think is what they said. My number may be incorrect. I heard it on a Geek Enders podcast. Well, selling less than 150,000 copies and they've made back all their development budget in 3 hours for a game that you were selling for $30 on PC only? Tell me that's not doing something right. Like, I don't know what to say any more than, like, they deserve all the success, the struggles that they took to get here, the fact that they have so many people buying into it. It amazes me. And the reviews are showing it as well. I think, what was it? Metacritic. We had it at Mewgenics. Let's see. Yep. Currently at an 89 on Metacritic. Now, compare this. I didn't include this story, but it also goes into the state of play layer. But a game that was announced and released on same day from Sony Santa Monica, people have been writing in saying they're upset because the co-op mode is hidden behind completing the game. So when you see something like Mewgenics just being like, yeah, this game has been in progress in some way, shape, or form since 2012, and we made back our budget, the game continues to sell like hotcakes, and it's got a high concurrent player count. That to me is the definition of success. And there's no microtransactions in it. There's no unnecessary price gouging. It's at a respectable price for what you get. And the developer said you can spend 200 hours in the game before you complete it, and you could spend 500 hours before you 100% it. So tell me that's not value for money. What do you think?
That's not value for money. Well, that's what you told me to tell you. But I think that
I did.
This is a great example of how your success in one game and how you treat your customers and the games you make can bleed over into a new game. Because like you said, you've been waiting for this game for over 10 years. And that's based on Edmund McMillen's other games, Binding of Isaac and Super Meat Boy. So like those helped. And granted, I'm assuming you played those.
Yes.
So the high quality of those games, people still talk about Super Meat Boy and Binding of Isaac quite regularly, left an impression. And so Mewgenics, yeah, it's a different game, and yeah, it's probably the wackiness of it probably drew people to it. But when you are someone who does really well by your customers and makes stuff that people want to play, you create a loyalty. Which is why if you're somebody who is just worried about the money, and you fuck over your customers and you do very anti-consumer shit, that'll cost you. Like, you have to be aware, like, even with, like, Helldivers, too, like, there's been complaints about community managers and how they've interacted with the community and content creators. That shit can bleed over to other games. And these companies need to be aware of that. So if you have a good relationship with your community and you do right and because, like, Binding of Isaac and Super Meat Boy are not traditional games that EA or, Activision or, these other companies might think to make, but they're, games that obviously have built up a fan base that has very much influenced the sales of this game. And to be in development that long and to make, because like you said, the game wasn't going to get published. And then all of a sudden, I guess Edmund McMillen and his studio took it upon themselves to get back the rights after they had lost them. They're, someone missed out. They said they made their money back already, and whoever was originally going to publish it or make it missed out. So it is very much a success story. You know, you love to see the little indie success stories like this smaller studio that can make a profit, you know, very, very quickly after release. And, you know, just by all means, a company or someone in Ed McMillan, a game maker who's always seemed to do things the right way, even making really difficult games, you know, making games that he wants to make. It's all led to his success just because of how much of an impression those games have left.
Well, now it's just, it was funny because it was on Reddit that somebody said, now that Mewgenics is released, what do you want to see in Mewgenics 2? And I was like, fuck off. Oh my gosh. So of course, that's the obvious joke to make. I'll be dead by the time it comes out. I don't know how Edmund will have survived beyond me, but I'll be dead.
And like, I mean, you don't have to make a sequel. You can always just add downloadable content or update patches to the game, like
you did to Binding of Isaac.
Was there a story behind that?
Well, I mean, there was Binding of Isaac, Binding of Isaac Afterbirth, Binding of Isaac Rebirth, Binding of Isaac Resurrection. It was like, it's like, do you ever watch the Simpsons episode where Marge buys the fancy dress and then because somebody made a comment about the dress being the same thing, she then goes in and alters it 50 billion times. So it was just like he kept making additions or changes to the base game.
Oh, was it that pink business suit?
Yes.
Okay, I do remember that episode. But I think if you're asking for him, like, to make a sequel to this game, like, what else would you be missing out on? Like, people enjoy Super Meat Boy. People enjoy Binding of Isaac. I'm not saying there haven't been re-releases or additions to those games or anything like that. And I don't know if there's been any sequels. Was there a sequel to Binding of Isaac?
No, no, just those revisions.
But this is one of those guys, you know, you want to see what he's got cooking up all the time. Like, if he had made Binding of Isaac 2, you know, or just Binding of Isaac games from here on out, you would have gotten no Mewgenics. Although, isn't there a new Super Meat Boy game coming out?
Yes, actually.
But it's not
Super
him?
Meat Boy 3D. No, I don't think it's him.
Okay.
No. He's left that behind.
Well, I mean, I'm sure,
Yeah,
I don't know who owns the rights, but obviously not him. So at some point, I would assume you don't want to fight over the right. Like, yeah, you'll pick your battles. You know, it's like Mewgenics, like, very clearly he wanted to fight for that. But Super Meat Boy, it's like, okay, been there, done that. I've made other games, so it's time to move on.
Yeah, he released that game. People want to start going in for the cash cow, but you got to be careful because, yeah, somebody may attribute you to that game. And if it doesn't do well, if it doesn't perform well, you may suffer. So all things to be considerate of. Speaking of considering, Highguard, you know that game that Jeff Keighley announced that ended the Game Awards that everybody had such high hopes for? Well, it's turning into Concord 2. The Highguard developer Wildlight Entertainment confirms that they had layoffs at the studio after poor performance of the game. It originally came out as a hero shooter just last month after a secret announcement that was made at the Game Awards in December. And unfortunately, it didn't review well. A lot of people were concerned about the quality, about the blandness of some of the characters, the fact that it was a hero-based, I think they said PvP raid game, meaning you and other players competing for a singular goal inside of a mission-based game. And a lot of people complained that a lot of it wasn't known beforehand. Like, they made the announcement at the Game Awards and then kind of went radio silent for weeks leading into January when they made like a overview on the game's release day. So a lot of people were kind of negative on the game. And if this comes from a IGN article that interviewed or spoke with a former developer on Highguard and said that their announcement and launch were disastrous, that we were, quote, turned into a joke from minute one. People basically calling this Concord 2 because even though it's not a Sony game, I think the sentiment is people are sick of these hero-based shooters that don't have any style or any heart or anything to them that like separates them from what could be another game. So, I don't hear anything about them shutting down the game, but the fact that a studio kind of came together, made this game, and these were former developers of things that worked on Apex Legends and Titanfall and a couple other high quality games, and it just failed horribly, fat in its face. So I hate seeing this for a studio. They obviously put a lot of heart and effort into it, but if a game doesn't hit on day one, these days, games aren't going to be catching up anytime soon. I mean, Alex, you weren't going to play Highguard, right?
Matt, I'm not going to lie to you. I had no idea what the fuck this game was.
And that's the thing about advertising.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about the Game Awards. Sometimes people don't pay attention to them. But it's like continued salt in the wound, because going on, like, here on out, it's always going to be like Firewalk and Concord are always going to be compared as like this perennial, like, that's like the gold standard for a failure now. And those people who worked on the game now have to live that fucking forever. And they have to be, any game now that underperforms or is like, looks like it's going to fail is going to be compared to Concord. So that's just like salt in the wound over and over again, like just a gash that's being reopened. So I feel bad for them, because I don't think Firewalk is, they had their hand in development of the game, obviously, but Sony bought them. Sony was helping fund it. Sony helped with guidance. I don't know. It's so for Firewalk to just kind of just take all these strays. You feel bad for them, because getting their studio closed was bad enough. But for this other company, from the outset to be kind of viewed, and to be fair, like Concord, and if there is a game that looks bad, people aren't kind about it. They're not shying away from saying how much it sucks. And online, what the discourse online can obviously help or hurt a game. We saw that with Concord, and obviously to have it, where a game feels like, at least the game makers feel like from the outset they were kind of behind the eight ball. You never want to see that, especially when it comes to these kind of projects, stuff in video games that make, time, they take time and effort. So I feel bad for them, because the internet is not kind and the game community is not kind, but at the same time, I don't really know much about the game, so that in itself kind of says something. I mean, it's associated with the Game Awards, so obviously it got some press, but it's obviously anytime you are compared to Concord, it's unfairly or not, that's obviously a very, very bad sign for your game.
Especially these days. So hopefully we'll see what happens with Highguard and whether or not it survives this, because it sounds like if they're laying off a significant portion of their studios, developers, that it's on life support and it's not going to be lasting much longer. Speaking of not lasting, Nintendo, coming from Android Authority, has DMCA'd multiple emulators, claiming that they bypass technological protection measures, which sometimes include cryptographic keys in the console, and are required to decrypt games. So last year they took down Yuzu and Mewgenics, which were two popular Switch emulators, and not a lot has happened since then until now, where they now put in claims against hardware emulator. I'm trying to find the freaking name. Includes Eden, Citron, Kenji NX, and Mellow NX. So essentially, instead of going after people hosting the game files, they're now going straight after anybody hosting the emulators themselves. And many of these emulator developers say, we don't have the keys. We don't direct people where to go. This is just strictly hardware emulation. We don't do any of that stuff. But doesn't stop Nintendo and their legal prowess from taking out a lot of these people. So this is the latest in moves that Nintendo has done that is really putting ill will towards their brand. It just seems like ever since Satoru Iwata died, Nintendo has been going downhill on the reputation train, I should say. So I don't know. This is a hit towards game preservation everywhere, also known as piracy. and it hurts from a fan of seeing how people are trying to protect games to Nintendo being like, no, you downloading a Nintendo Switch game we released 10 years ago hurts us financially. It doesn't, folks. Alex, your insight?
I don't know if insight's the right word, but question for you first. So they're going after the emulators, which means that before they were going after just single files of the games. Now they're going after the actual hosting, which holds all the games, right?
No. So before they were going after the hosts who had game files on their sites. Now they're going after the people who programmed these emulators, meaning that if they take the emulators down, people could have files. They can't do anything with them.
Okay. So they're more going to the source as opposed to just the people who were... Like, to use an example, like YouTube is an example, because it's easier for me to understand. They're not going after YouTube, so to speak. They're going after the people who would make the videos, right?
I'll liken it to this.
God damn it, I don't get this.
You have a car.
I'm struggling.
No, you don't. You have a car, right?
I do have a car.
Gas.
I live in the suburbs.
You need gas to make that car go.
Fucking
right?
A.
So they're going and taking away your car. So you can have all the gas in the world, but without that car, you're not doing anything with it. I mean, I may use it to set something on fire, but
so wait, Matt,
this is the best analogy I can make.
They're not going after just emulators. They're coming for my car. That's what you're saying Nintendo's going to do?
Nintendo is coming for your car out. You specifically, Nintendo's going to show up at your door tomorrow and take your car.
Is this because I've hated on Mario Kart World? Is that why they're coming for my car?
Probably. You said it was not worth the $80, $90.
Well, it seems like I'm not the only one that thinks that, but...
well, you're the one that put it on record,
I hate to tell... Well, you know what?
Sayonara Alex's car.
You know what? It ain't going to be at the house tomorrow because I got to work, so joke's on them. Let them find me at work.
It's Nintendo. I think they can find you.
No, I'm sure they'll just get distracted, go catch Pokemon or something. I don't know. They'll go cut a deal with McDonald's to make Happy Meal toys.
There you go. All right, so just be aware, folks. The state of Nintendo emulation is not very good. Not at this time right now.
I mean, you talked about Satoru Iwata. I mean, we can talk about how make the point that it's Nintendo has always been the very more value priced console, and that's definitely going away. So you look at Nintendo as a company, they've always fought piracy, but it seems like the company as a whole is very much more focused less on the value they can provide to their customers and more on the money they can get from their customers. And those are two different things.
Very, very much.
Because if you do create value for your customers will keep you company nice and healthy with funds. But there are times when companies maximize profits or try to at the expense of their customers.
Well, it seems to be what Nintendo's doing now, when they used to not be this way. Alrighty. Guess what? We put up our post about listener questions, and our main man, Thomas, came in with 4. You ready for this, Alex?
I don't know if I'm ever ready for Thomas questions, but I guess we're going forward regardless.
Time to check my social media, yeah.
So he actually asked 2 questions about the state of play. So he's getting ahead of us when it comes to our topic of the week. And he did ask 2 Olympic-related questions. For those of you who might be interested, the Winter Olympics currently are going on, I believe, over in France.
And
this kind
is
of
it not in Milan?
Is it in Milan? I don't know. Oh, yes, it is Italy. So this should tell you the answer to his one question: are you watching the Olympics or being forced to watch them? Well, I'm not watching them at all because I didn't know where they were. Alex, are you watching the Olympics?
Not really. Like, I guess because of basketball, I'm more likely to watch the Summer Olympics. But the Winter Olympics, like, we were out at a restaurant last night, and Mongolian grill, by the way, delicious. Little Mongolian stir fry, love that. But they just had the Olympics on TV, so we were just like, well, they're on TV, we're eating, we might as well watch them. And they had curling on. It was like the U.S. versus Deutschland.
Oh, did you watch
Germany?
Did you watch the one where Canada was like caught cheating
That was earlier in the
concurrently?
day. We were not there that early. We were
It-
there for dinner,
oh.
but it was hours earlier that I heard that who was it, Canada and somebody other. Like there was an altercation.
So, yeah, somebody accused Canada of cheating. Yeah, no. Ironically, V and I went out for Valentine's Day dinner and went to a Vietnamese pho restaurant, and I think there might have been the Olympics on somewhere in the background. So, small world.
So yeah, not watching it at home, but if it's on TV somewhere, I mean, it's the only real. Football's over. Basketball All-Star break is on. Really, there's not many sports to be had right now.
So, Thomas's next question: do you think they should bring back Olympic Games to gaming systems? And I say they never left, Thomas, because we have Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games.
That was a long time ago, Matt.
I thought they just came out with a newer one.
Did they?
Let's see, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. Let's see, based on 2020, Sega has signed a new multi-year licensing agreement with the International Olympic Committee for Sonic-themed Olympic brand. No, that's not it. Sonic Games, Milano, Mario and Sonic. I don't know. I can't tell. All I know is that we have it. I remember on our old Macintosh 2E playing the Olympic Games, loading in one of the B drive floppies, and I didn't get any of it. I couldn't understand it. So then I went back to Disney's Goofy and the Olympic Games, and playing on the Matterhorn. That was my Olympic Games back then. Alex, do you want to see Olympic Games back on gaming systems?
I mean, you know what? Maybe if they make like a D2 The Mighty Ducks video game, then I'll be down for. I mean, I guess that's the Goodwill game, so it's not necessarily the Olympics, but still USA, Team USA, out there repping against the rest of the world. So, but the Olympics, I don't even. I just talked about I'm more likely to watch the Summer Olympics, but honestly, unless it's out at a restaurant where I'm literally am just sitting there eating, I'm stuck there for a certain amount of time, I'm not watching the Olympics. I don't care.
Gotcha. So Thomas's final two questions are related to the state of play, which we'll talk about in a second. And he said, do you think they will remaster the God of War controllers or leave the controls, I guess is what he means, or leave them the same? And the state of play showed the new John Wick game. If a child has seen the movies, do you think they should be allowed to play the game? So we'll hit that when we go back to the items. So yes, we are talking about the state of play that came out last week. Alex, did you watch any of it, or are you looking for the cliff notes on this?
I have watched wrap-ups, so I know some of the high notes, but I didn't sit down and watch everything. So I'll be aware of most of what we're going to cover, but I can't say that I've unturned every stone.
Okay. So we will talk first about the John Wick game. There was an announcement. So Keanu Reeves does return to video game world, and in this time lending his likeness and voice to John Wick. I said it looks like a very Batman Arkham-esque type of combat game where you have to get the combat right. It has to flow smoothly. So did you watch any of the John Wick movies?
I did not, so I don't know about the question about, should kids be able to, if they've seen the movie, should they be able to play the video game?
Okay. Did you watch the trailer or see this one?
This one passed by me. So as far as obviously the Batman, the free flow combat that was in that Rocksteady came up with made sense. Does it make sense? Is it a similar style thing to the Batman games?
Yes.
And does that make sense
Yes.
in the world of John Wick?
Because all of his, in the movie, the combat that he engages in is a very close combat flowing from one bad guy to the next to continue moving forward. So to answer Thomas's question, if a child's seen the movie, should they be allowed to play the game? That depends on your thought process of whether you feel like playing a game and doing the things that he does in the movie attributes any level of, I don't know, imparts any of that onto a child. And I guess the child's age is also dependent on it. Me personally, yes, if they've seen the movies, I would allow them to play, but it'll also be a conversation with them to say, you're going to be doing certain things that you saw John Wick doing, and you do know that this is not real life, that this is a entertainment, so to speak, and that in real life things are very different. So take that with that lens. So that would be my thought. So yeah. Again, hyper violent Alex, super fluid movement, gunplay, knives, breaking bones, smashing faces into glass, and other things, killing people outright. So yeah, John Wick is a master of death. So for as good as Batman is, John Wick just goes that one extra step further.
Wait a minute, is John Wick Batman?
No.
Are we
definitely
sure?
Not, because his name, he is not Bruce Wayne.
Could John Wick beat Bruce Wayne in a fistfight?
No. Could he beat him in a fistfight? That's actually a really good question. I think Batman has the edge on physicality.
Yeah, but he doesn't have a suit.
John
Wick doesn't have a suit, so would Bruce Wayne have a suit?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. John Wick has been known to kill a person with a pencil. So
I've never seen Batman do that. Of course, Batman doesn't really try to kill people, but
kill. Yeah. So
I'll throw my opinion here when it comes to, Thomas's question. I think that if someone is willing to let their kid, and every person is different. I grew up watching things that I probably shouldn't have watched. I grew up playing games that maybe I shouldn't have played, but it's always, parents have to take in kind of knowing their children, and hopefully they know their children and their maturity level and their understanding of things and how they react to uber violent things. It's, it's obviously, you obviously don't want to let a 9-year-old fucking watch John Wick, but for a teenager, I mean, maybe you can have that conversation, but I think if someone's going to allow their kid to watch John Wick, they're probably not going to stop, draw the line at the video game. They're probably going to be fine with them playing the video game too. I personally think that children, and we can debate the age, but I don't think children should be watching like uber, violent fighting movies. I know that everyone's maturity is different, but if we're just making a general rule, it doesn't sound like kids should be watching John Wick or playing the game. But obviously that's up for, but I do think that that's obviously up for, the parents to decide. And, like I said, everyone's maturity level is different. I grew up playing Twisted Metal Black and watching the I Know What You Did Last Summer movies and Scream. So, we can all, I'm sure even parents, understand or can think back to their own childhood when they weren't just playing Mario Party at a friend's house. We probably watched movies, my generation probably watched movies we shouldn't have watched, played games we shouldn't have played. The question is now, is content, how much more violent is content now, and how does that affect kids now? It's a complex question. If we're making a general rule, I definitely do think that their ages should not be viewing that content. But, personally, it's, that's something that the families and then the parents need to take into account and discuss and actually think about it, and just not be like, yeah, sure, you want to watch this? Go ahead and watch it. It's not as easy as that. So
the next items that we talk about in this, to Thomas's point, they did announce remake, remaster of the original 3 God of War games. So he asks, are they going to keep the controls the same? I assume so. I don't think they're going to add anything like fancy, like motion controls or whatnot into that. So I don't know. I think people's more concerns were, are they going to censor the game? Because those games were explicit back in the day. And I don't know if they're going to meet people's sensitivities in these days. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with it. But that was not the only thing Sony Santa Monica announced. They also announced God of War Sons of Sparta, a side-scrolling adventure surrounding, that world. And this was what I mentioned earlier, was that it evidently figures 2 protagonists, but it has co-op only after you beat the main story. And it's like a certain mode that gets added into it. So I don't know. What do you think of that, Alex? Is like, I feel like if you're going to have a co-op mode and it only opens after one player has beat the story, I feel like you're missing something.
Well, and also, I feel like this game is going to have a lot of hot takes. We can get into that a little bit, but specifically to answer your question, people would want to play through co-op right away. Like, do people really want to wait the second time? Like, if you beat it once, are you as enthused to play it again a second time? Or are you just like, well, I beat it, whatever. Like, it just feels like you should open that experience from the start. I can understand unlocking difficulties, higher difficulty levels by beating, say, the game on normal. It's like, hey, beat the game once, and then you can unlock, whatever difficulty. But to not make co-op available from the start is just kind of a weird decision. Although this game in general feels like a weird decision, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, well, the art style's different than what the other ones are. I don't know the story. I don't know what really is surrounding it, but I mean, it was a shadow drop. They didn't announce anything ahead of time and said, hey, game's available now. So that's another thing that was announced.
Yeah, I mean,
also,
I had the game, and I was watching some of on YouTube RGT85's, him talking about the Sony showcase, which he was very high on, but he described it as kind of like a Super Nintendo 16-bit style, which I can kind of see that, but also it's less cartoony. So it's kind of this weird in-between realistic and like the cartooniness of the Super Nintendo, which I love Super Nintendo graphics. If you went all in on that, I'd love it. But it's in this weird, like I was prepared to be like, okay, whatever, 16-bit, I love that. And then I saw it and it's like, oh, that does look a little on the weird side. And for them, it's $30, so it's on PlayStation right now. Like, it was released the same day as the State of Play, which is not like Sony at all. Just, drop it same day. And also for me, like, it was a new release for God of War, not the typical God of War, but also it wasn't anywhere on the homepage. You had to search it out. Like, you had to go to the search bar and search for it. I thought that was kind of weird. This is a Sony first-party game. It's a God of War game, and 2D, but at the same time, it's like, I thought it was harder to find and not as well marketed, even on the store, as most of their games would be. So this game just feels kind of weird. Like, they didn't. I don't want to say didn't fully commit to it because they may have put the money behind it. It may be a great game, but it definitely feels like just immediately dropping it, not making it super visible in the store. It just feels weird. It's like, we know we have to give you a God of War game, so this is we're going to give you the smaller bite-sized God of War until we can give you the remakes of the 1, 2, and 3.
I don't mind that. I just think Sony probably should have been better prepared for a shadow drop by making it, everybody's console updates with it first and foremost. Because evidently, from what Tricky said when he said something, is that it crashed the store. People couldn't access it because everybody was trying to search for it and find it and download it. So you could tell what Sony priority was. Speaking of other things that showed up, they gave a 007 First Light story trailer. I can't tell you the last time I actually cared about a James Bond game or even movie, Alex.
I had a friend who was really excited about this, and depending on how they do it, was it first person?
I think it is.
There's something to be said for, obviously James Bond, a lot of people who had disposable income grew up playing on N64 GoldenEye. The multiplayer, the story mode, and people talk about the multiplayer, but I had tons of fun just playing the dam level, which is the first level. The frigate was another one of my favorite ones to play. So there's a history of James Bond just being a fun game to play on consoles. You think of Perfect Dark, and that game was canceled. Like, there is something to be said about a secret agent first-person shooter game. Like, it feels like there's always going to be a place for James Bond because there's always a place for James Bond movies. But so I'm not interested in it personally, but I have had first-hand experience of people telling me they are excited for it. And given James Bond's history in the industry, I can definitely see why. The building blocks and the foundation for James Bond's involvement in the video games were there from the very start. Or not from the very start, but very early on. Once games went to 3D.
Also announced was For Loop, a 4-player co-op shooter. This was announced at the last State of Play, or at least one during the summer, talking about the mechanics and what you can expect. It's a very, I don't know, it's kind of like a Left 4 Dead or what's the newest one that they came out with? One of those, I forget the name. I don't know. Didn't do too well because it was on Xbox services.
Back 4 Blood.
Back 4 Blood, that's right. So kind of like this, but like I guess with robots or futuristic setting. More to come, I guess. Beast of Reincarnation, 1-person, 1-dog action RPG launching on August 4th. It's evidently a sci-fi inspired far future Japan, where the video showed a protagonist and their dog taking down large monsters. Actually looked kind of beautiful. Brigandine Abyss, RPG called Blast from PlayStation Strategic Pass. Looks like it's a remake of an older RPG. A lot of people liked this one, Castlevania Belmont's Curse, a brand new Castlevania game. Today's environment.
Well,
what do you think of that?
Not just a brand new Castlevania game, a brand new 2D Castlevania game, which I'm not trying to shit on Lords of Shadow, but I was never trying to play any of the 3D Castlevanias. It's 2D's where it's always been at. Super Castlevania 4, Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, Symphony of the Night, the original. It's just, that's the way you want to play Castlevania. And so, Konami, for all their lack of involvement in video games, very much seems to be, and have been for a little bit now, but farming out, Bloober Team did Silent Hill 2, and they're doing Silent Hill, and then even Annapurna Interactive is doing the new Silent Hill game that they showed off. So Konami, even if they don't want to touch the video games themselves, they are at least seemingly putting the right people in place to take advantage of their IP. Castlevania, not immediately sold on the art style. The gameplay, the combat looks good though. But again, I'm not saying I don't like the art style, but given the fact we are getting a brand new Castlevania, I'm not going to complain. So I am excited for that, because I do love me some classic monster bashing. And I mean, Konami in general, like they really seem to be, it wasn't just Sony first party stuff. It was very much Sony getting help from third parties. Ubisoft in something I'm sure we'll talk about earlier, but Konami in general, because it was the Metal Gear Collection, the new Metal Gear Collection they came out with was the Master Collection Volume 2, a new Castlevania game, as well as a brand new Silent Hill game. So Konami really brought it to this.
Konami's stepping it up. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's hard to not
call this Konami showcase.
Granted, it's not hard for Konami to do better than they were doing, but I think that was a big part of the success of this show was Konami being so strong and having such a strong ties to Sony.
So yeah, some of those other games that you hit on was the announcement of more like a trailer of Silent Hill Townfall, which is another Silent Hill game coming out that is not set in Silent Hill. Instead, it's set in St. Ames and faced, I think, in Glasgow, something like that. Protagonist showed first-person combat and exploration, which is definitely a change for that.
Yeah, that was like Dead Island vibes. I mean, you don't have like as many enemies or not being swarmed by zombies like you might in Dead Island, but that's the kind of the feeling I got like from the first person view where you're, because usually it's third person for Silent Hill.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty historically, third person, but I guess they said Resident Evil did it. We could do it too, which not the first time Konami has done that with the Silent Hill area. So definitely some ups there for Konami. Also coming back in was Remedy Entertainment showing an extended play of Control Resonant. And if you remember, Control was a third-person shooter type of game. This one is a third-person melee-focused game. I want to go back and enjoy more of that Control Alan Wake universe. I don't know if I'm buying that this is that same type of game, so I guess I'll have to see. But just like your gun in the original Control, the main protagonist's melee weapon here changes based off of your power, so we'll see how that goes. let's see, Crimson Moon, a kind of, let's see, what do they say here? I didn't remember much of this one. It's a third-person combat game set in kind of like a rustic medieval setting with some special powers. You can hunt alone or slay together, so there's co-op. Supposedly launching in 2026. Newest comedy game that I think my browser just busted. Darwin's Paradox looks like a kind of like an Octodad type thing, or octopus with aliens and all sorts of industrial sewage. So it looks like that there's I don't know how to explain these damn games. Dead or Alive 6 last round. The PC announced trailer for Death Stranding 2 on the beach. The Ghost of Yotei Legends mode is coming out in short order on March 10th, which, if you remember, the original Ghost of Tsushima had a Legends mode introduced for free after the game's launch. This one focusing on the patrons of the Yotei 6, the snake, the kitsune, the oni, and I think the spider, one of those. Then this to me actually was a great surprise.
For people who never played the Legends mode that don't know, because they released this for Ghost of Tsushima as well. It's very much a online multiplayer focused mode with different modes, including like a raid mode. Which I'm gonna be honest, I tried that raid mode in Ghost of Tsushima. It was really hard. I couldn't even get past the first phase with the teams that I played with. So, but yeah, it's more online multiplayer focused.
Yeah, I am looking to actually play that this time because I never played the Legends mode for the first one. To me, a surprise announcement was Kena, Scars of Cosmora, the sequel to Kena Bridge of Spirits. I played a little bit of the original Kena and then I dropped off, but I do have it in my Steam library. I think I'm going back to it. This game looks freaking fantastic. And it shows a little bit more of mature Kena and some of the things that she needs to do. So, launching on PS5 and PC later this year. I think Sony likes money.
Yeah, that was a nice little surprise because Ember Labs. I don't know that obviously since Kena Bridge of Spirits, which was a really good game, although surprisingly difficult combat wise, some of those bosses were pretty brutal. Didn't know that we expected or had even thought about them in a long time, but this new Kena game looks really, really good, visually impressive, and looks to be a bigger game as well. So as a fan of the first game, I look forward to the second game as well. Good to see they're still around and obviously in a partnership still with Sony because, game is still going to PC, but it's obviously, launching only on console on PlayStation. So I'm not trying to say that other people shouldn't be able to play the game, but, I definitely as a Sony consumer, someone who buys Sony products, I want to see that Sony is fostering good relationships with game makers, not just to, screw other people out of games to have exclusives, but to make sure that I, as a game player on my PlayStation, can enjoy these games. So.
Hell yeah. Speaking of enjoying games, Legacy of Kain Defiance Remastered. So the game that kind of closed out the Soul Reaver Legacy of Kain comes back with updated graphics. And, I looked at this and said they're labeling it remastered because it's really just a facelift on the game, including, maybe updated controls, but definitely visuals. So they're not touching it much. But when a game is this far removed visually from its predecessor, I think that's a great job. I saw the changes that they're making and damn, looking good. Marathon. Moving on.
Yeah, I don't know what you want me to say there.
No, there's nothing. They are going to have what they're calling a server slam on February 26th ahead of the game's launch on March 5th. I think they want to avoid as much problems as possible with the game's launch because I think we kind of see the direction it's going. Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls coming on August 6th to PS5 and PC. This is a Marvel side-scrolling adventure game. I think was the premise. So I don't think it's a fighting game. Yeah.
Look, I just got done with Cosmic Invasion. Well, about a month and a half ago, I got done with Cosmic Invasion. You want me to invest into another Marvel side-scrolling game? I don't know about that. I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna wait for Tribute to put out some DLC.
As Alex mentioned earlier, Metal Gear Solid Collection 2, which includes Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots and Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, though from what I was reading is that Guns of the Patriots will not have the Metal Gear Online mode into it, but that the Peace Walker will have its online component at launch. So definitely, I never finished Metal Gear Solid 4. I don't see a reason for me to go back to do it, but if you've never played it and wanted to, this is now your opportunity to do so. Metal Gear Solid, we already said that. Mina the Hollower was touted as a Zelda-inspired adventure game featuring either a rabbit or a fox or something. I don't know, old school graphics. If you like adventure games, this looks like it'll be up your alley. Definitely 8-bit kind of gameplay with collection of items to bypass further. So kind of like a Metroidvania. Neva Prologue, which is DLC, available February 19th. I had Channel 3 definitely had a love for Neva, so something to look at. A little bit of a closer look at Capcom's new game, Pragmata, which features a man in a suit accompanied by a little android girl. And it says, get ready to hack and fight your way through enemies' threats on April 24th. The game I called Kentucky Fried Wukong, Project Windless, coming to the PS5, it's inspired by a Korean novel series, The Bird That Drinks Tears. Basically, your protagonist is like a giant rooster man.
Oh, I did see this. That looks bad as shit. Like that combat, like with how many enemies were coming at you, I had like flashbacks to watching trailers of Heavenly Sword, because there's that one scene where she's just fighting off hundreds, if not thousands, of enemies, and I see this big old bird, chicken, rooster dude, and I was like, oh, that looks pretty sick. Like, don't get me wrong, the protagonist looks ridiculous, but I swear to God, like that actually, it's the kind of ridiculous that makes me want to play it more, because it was just so impressive to see like this giant bipedal animal just going to town on everything.
Yeah, the combat looks intense. I called it Black Myth or Kentucky Fried Wukong because it looks like that same style of game. Announced for release immediately and launching on February 13th digitally, but you have to wait until the summer for a physical edition, was Rayman 30th Anniversary, which is a collection of old Rayman games, which I think is actually a really cool collection to have. They haven't done that before.
I agree. I mean, Rayman is someone I think that, I mean, we know the Smash Brothers community has been big fans of Rayman being included at some point. He's not a full-fledged character, but who knows what the future holds for that series. Rayman was also one of the Astrobot characters. He was one of the bots that you could unlock and save in Astrobot. So he's been in, there's been good vibes for Rayman recently. So he has not been forgotten. And also the PSP games. I cannot remember which one I played, but some of the PSP games, the platformers were really good. So Rayman's been...
Origins and Legends were both a very good Rayman games.
Yeah, I can't remember which one I played. It might have been Origins, but I'm not sure. But it was really good. Rayman obviously has been there. He's been a mascot for Ubisoft for the longest time. So, it is... we talk about, I mean, you mentioned earlier with the whole piracy and the emulation talk, an example of a game that people may not have access to that deserves this kind of treatment. The collection / remake / remaster treatment, just older games that become available again, become, more widely released. You love to see it. Even if you're not a fan of Rayman, even if you think Rayman's goofy, it's a good thing to see.
And then you get people introduced to the series and falling in love with the series, so definitely worth it.
Yeah.
New launch trailer for Resident Evil Requiem. I'm buying the game, so I don't want to see story beats, so I try to avoid those trailers. Rev Noir teaser trailer, their new JRPG brought to you by Konami. As Alex mentioned, Konami was kind of firing on all cylinders, so it's a story that follows a memory lost boy and a mysterious girl as they set out on a journey to put an end to the catastrophe. So definitely a new JRPG. And we kind of touched on the other ones, but the final thing to talk about here is Saros, the gameplay overview trailer, what I am calling Returnal version Saros. So I don't know. In our text group, we kind of talked about this, and Yield thought that it was kind of like, okay. I think this state of play actually really impressed. They came with a lot of games, a lot of good-looking games, a lot of returning things, but not overly so. Some things I know I was interested in, some things I know you're interested in. Tricky definitely was looking at some of those things, and I think got right into the God of War Sons of Sparta. Were there some things here that could have been better announced elsewhere? Yeah, but I think for all intents and purposes, this was a great state of play, showing that Sony still has things to offer as we're starting in the back half of the PS5 life cycle.
I agree. I know that some people were disappointed there was no Wolverine. There will be a state of play just for Wolverine, so don't you worry. But as far as, giving us surprises like Kena, the Rayman stuff, brand new Castlevania, the surprises are there. You also had updates on a game like Saros, which I think looks really good. I really enjoyed. You just mentioned, what was the name? Returnal. I really like Returnal, and I think Saros looks great too. And I good mixture of first party stuff with partners presentation. Keeping those ties strong with Konami, and a lot of just like PlayStation. You had the God of War, you had Rayman, which I believe he started on PlayStation, if I'm not wrong about that. Or at least he's always been tied pretty closely to PlayStation. You had Silent Hill, you had Castlevania, which obviously Symphony of the Night was on the PlayStation. So there's a lot of and I get Castlevania was probably more rooted in Nintendo than anything else, but there are a lot of franchises here that have deep roots in PlayStation, so that was nice to see. So a good mix of first party, third party, a good mix of old and new, and I think a good mix of updates on games, but also surprises. So I thought overall it was a really good show. I think, again, the Wolverine thing, I don't really... Like I said, there'll be more on that, so you don't have to worry about that. I do think that the God of War stuff might have gotten people really hyped and then let them down a little bit, because when you first see that Omega symbol and it's like, oh man, new God of War, and then like you start to see that it's like, oh, it's referencing the original trilogy and we're getting remakes. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm excited to see what those games look like, especially like the boss fights. Like, I think the boss fight against the Hydra remake will look incredible. The Minotaur from the first game, and the Colossus of Rhodes from the second game, and the Kraken from the second. Like, there's so many boss fights that are going to look incredible in those games. But I think that people now want to know what's up with Kratos and Atreus next. And I think that remakes maybe aren't what people were expecting or looking for. And then giving them maybe a side-scrolling game like they gave in Sons of Sparta. Again, maybe not what people were asking for. Not saying it's a bad game, but I think really the only thing you can look at this thing and say that they might have dropped the ball on is they kind of teased God of War in a way that I, at least initially, what I saw, thought maybe might be a new game, and it turned out it was remakes. I don't know, Matt. Did you get that, or...
I don't know. It's one of those I'm always put off by, like, state of plays or Switch Directs or Xbox developer things where they start bringing in remakes more than actual new games. But this one I felt was kind of in line with what I expected at this point in Sony's life. But like I said, they brought in a lot of legit stuff.
Yeah, I just feel like if you're going to show anything God of War now, and they did give us a new God of War game, so, credit to them, but I think that if you were going to talk about God of War, it kind of needed to be the next 3D God of War, the evolution of that series, so,
Well, with the rumors that it's going to be focused on Atreus, I don't know if they're ready to do that. Like you said, Wolverine's going to get its own. I think God of War is going to get its own.
I mean, initially they will show off, because they didn't show any of the trilogy remakes. They didn't show anything from that. It was just a teaser. But they did actually have the original voice actor for Kratos there as well. I can't remember his name right now, but it wasn't the Norse Kratos voice actor. It was the guy who did it back for the Grecian one back on the PlayStation 2, which was nice to see him.
Yes.
It was nice that he was included in this, because obviously history and being accurate to the characters and the franchise is important. So I did appreciate that. So hold on, Matt Vamp for a little bit. Let me see what his name is.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, everybody knows Kratos is Chris Judge now, but it's to have them brought back. Like we were always kind of afraid of
Terrence
that.
Carson. That's who it was. Terrence Carson.
There you go. We're afraid that Terrence might be replaced in any sort of remake or remasters, but no, it definitely has a distinctive voice. And, I don't see Terrence coming back and doing anything new because his voice will have changed after all these decades. But definitely, I think those games are worth going back and replaying. All right. Well, thank you all for sticking with us through another Trophy Whores episode. And we want to do our shout outs. So, Alex, please take it away.
Give a shout out to the listeners, the fans, the fuel to the fire. This Trophy Whores. Thank you all for joining us again this week, as you always do. We appreciate your support as we continue on this long and joyous journey that we've all kind of built this community around. A shout out to my co-host Matt, as well as Tricky and Yield, who could not join us. And last but not least, give a shout out to my awesome and loving girlfriend, Ashley. I love you, hun. And that's going to be it for me.
All right. I will shout out to you, Alex. Thanks for recording tonight when we got to hold down the fort for Tricky and Yield. Shout out to those two gents for doing what they need to do. Tricky for working, Yield for putting up with a PC that may not want to do things. Shout out to Will for your art. Shout out to the Channel 3 community. Make sure to check out channel3.gg for any of your gamified social media. Shout out to our listeners, and shout out to my wife E. Thank you for all that you do. With that said, episodes 705, we're out for viewers.
Later.
The theme song is Venus by the band Even off their album Zenith. Permission granted by the band and 12th Stone Records. You can find them on Facebook by going to www.facebook.com/evenphilippines.